everyone, to Free Basketball, the inaugural episode of the brand new The Leads Podcast Network. I am your host, Ryan Meadows. I am joined today by Daniel Greer, who is actually the architect of this whole thing. So Daniel, introduce yourself to the people that you have been trying to get to listen to this new podcast network.
Got to give the people what they want, man.
Is this what the people wanted?
Yes, like they've actually all been standing outside my house. Like there's still people out there right now with signs saying, we want a podcast network from the Lead. So you got it. You're welcome.
You're welcome. And if you've listened to us in the past, if you have not, welcome. If you listened to us in the past, this is just a new streamlined podcast network to expose you to other teams and avenues and people's other thoughts besides just our own, because I'm sure you're getting fulfilled just by our own basketball thoughts by themselves. We thought we would expose you to other people as well. So this is going to be a network. There's two different networks, right, Daniel? Just like a mini Q&A. Like we've got our own podcast network, and then there's going to be actual branches. If people aren't familiar with the Lead, each branch for each individual NBA team has their own Twitter. We're trying to build a podcast network with each, but the network, kind of explain the network versus the team side of it.
Yeah, so the network, I am now officially the audio advisor. We kind of just made up a title, but I am the one who is trying to lead the charge for the audio part of the Lead. And so what it is the podcast network, which hopefully, you subscribe. We're going to have 6 different shows a week. They'll all be, roughly 45 minutes to an hour. And there's going to be different shows. There's going to be 3 NBA shows, a WNBA show, which is Leading with a W on Wednesdays. There's also like kind of a crossover NBA, WNBA, digging a little bit into college basketball, a tiny bit, with the draft and stuff like that. And then on Saturdays, it's a different show. New Channel Sports, they do a little bit of football. They're going to do NBA as well, and maybe some college. And so they're going to kind of be all over the place, but it's a Saturday show, right? So they can just go wherever they want. And so that's kind of the route that's going to take. So that's the podcast network. So if you're listening to us on the Leads Podcast Network, that's what that is. Every other team branch, which we have with the Lead, such as the one we're a part of is Grizz Lead. It's going to have its own podcast, as well as the Knicks and the Pistons, Rockets team. A lot of our teams will have podcasts just solely for those teams. But as of now, we don't have a podcast for every single team. So if you have a favorite team, go ahead and check out whatever the team is. If you want to just look up the Lead Sports Media, or you can go to the website at the Lead SM. You can find your team and find out what they're called. But more than likely, it's going to be up whatever the team is, like Grizz Lead, Pistons Lead, T-Wolves Lead. So they won't be very hard to find. So if you have a team you love, there's probably a podcast for them. If not, just hang out with us. And eventually, if you like them and there's enough people that are, wanting that team to have one, we'll find people that are actually able to do a podcast. So check them out and make sure you subscribe to all of them so you get, our full shows each and every week.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that we're trying to do with just the network itself and the team pods, right? It's because, like you said, if you are a fan of a certain team, you obviously probably know more about that team than we might just from looking on the outside in. Now, we have opinions, from what we see, but we're not following them every single day. Like you might be a fan of, the Trailblazers or something like that. But if you look at Blazers Lead and they don't have a podcast, you should contact us and start one. It's not hard to do. I mean, if me and Daniel can do it, then anybody can do it, right? So yeah, please subscribe to each of those. I like listening to hearing other people talk about their favorite teams because it gives me a better understanding of what's going on in that market, which helps us with our content here with Free Basketball, which our goal for you is going to be a general overall look at the NBA. Obviously, we'll talk about specific things as well as other shows on our network, like the Hoopers Log, who's going to be out on Tuesday. And like you said, the WNBA and High Off the Glass on Thursdays, another show that we're going to have. We're all talking about the NBA in general, And of course, it'll be like breaking news and what's kind of going on at the moment, maybe some prediction stuff. But the team stuff is great because it helps me round out my information instead of just looking at, what a lot of people do is nobody's watching the Pistons on a Thursday night play the Cavs, right? Except you're a Pistons fan. And so all most people look at is box scores, right? Oh, Saddiq Bey had 21 points on that one night. He must be playing well this year. And you just don't know. So this is what this network and the team affiliate pods are for. It's to get out more information so we are more well-rounded and better basketball fans in general, because the whole league's motto is casual basketball fans become diehards. And we want you to do that. So we welcome you into the show. This is the first inaugural free basketball episode for the Lead Podcast Network. This is obviously not our first episode ever. We've been doing this for a couple years now, but this is the first for the network. And we thought we would start it off. Well, first, maybe I should say that we are missing a member. A
member we might be missing all the time, but he's a member.
He's a very busy man, and his name is Cody Halsey. If you listen to past, if you haven't listened, you'll actually hear him on this episode with just me, because what we're going to do today is, for the past 2 seasons, we've done team previews. These were kind of our rankings, 30-1 of how we see kind of our predictions for the year. And so these are individual breakdowns by tiers. We have 4 tiers. And so this is, so the little disclaimer here is I originally had it in 5 tiers, and then Daniel, audio advisor, told me I only had 4 weeks. So I went ahead and recorded 2 of them with Cody when he was available. So I had to rearrange my tiers to make them all fit. You'll hear just me and Daniel for a few, and then me and Cody will finish up for this first tier. And so I'll be cutting back and forth between that audio and with Daniel. So you'll probably get a break. So just a heads up, if it feels kind of awkward transition-wise, that is why. So this is our first team preview. This is our first tier. This is ranking the teams. This tier is going to go from team 30 to team number 24. And I labeled this the under 30 club. Daniel, if I said the under 30 club, what's your assumption?
That they are under the age of 30.
A lot of them probably correlates, yes, to youth with they will probably win less than 30 games this year. So these will probably be, thanks for bearing the lead a little bit. That's why we play along. People will find out very quickly how sarcastic and rude and mean we are with each other, but it's all in fun.
They'll also learn that I don't actually plan for these. So I'm just here hanging out.
Daniel doesn't even know what basketball is.
Yeah, I'm just
no, this is the under 30 club. And so 30th team in our rankings, we have, and I already disagree with this one because I think they're going to be bad, but I don't think they're going to be the worst team. The Detroit Pistons, who last year went 20-52, which was good for 15th seed in the East. They are still coached by Dwayne Casey. Daniel, did you have Detroit as your worst ranked team for this coming season?
That's what's actually pulling up right now. Here it is. All right, I got it. I did not. I had them at ranked 14th in the East, and so practically the same spot. Like you give her take a game, 14 or 15, but
26-30, somewhere in there.
Correct. Overall, yeah. So they're definitely in the bottom 5 of the league, and I think that this team has potential with the young players. Obviously, they just got Cade. And so I believe that this is a team with upside, but this is also a team that will not be good just because of they're under the age of 30, right?
Yes. And they're probably mostly all under 30. And they're probably not going to increase their wins this year by 11 wins, I would assume.
Right.
That's what we have ranked here. But projected starters for them, I see them starting. This is kind of what they did with Summer League. So I'm just kind of projecting based on what they did with Summer League. In Summer League, they started Killian Hayes as point guard, and Cade Cunningham was playing off ball as the 2. So I think they're going to stick with that. And then the 3, I think, is going to be Saddiq Bey. And then I think to round out the lineup, Jeremy Grant obviously been there. And I'm not sure if they're going to keep starting Isaiah Stewart like they did last year, or if they're going to try to spread the floor more and start Kelly Olynyk, who they just got. Is there an actual debate between those two, or one you'd rather see start over the other, or would you agree with those starters in general?
Yeah, I agree. I like Olynyk. I think he will be somebody who is very underrated for this team. I think he'll be somebody who helps them in a real way. And so I do like Olynyk for this team.
So we'll get into some strengths for this team. Do you have a strength that sticks out for a team that was 15th in the East last year?
That there's potential now.
Yeah.
That's a strength.
When I was trying to think of a strength, I thought they had the number one pick in Cade. Is that really a strength? But another one is like young guys that are trying to prove they belong, right?
Right.
Like Isaiah Stewart was kind of a mid to late first round pick, if not a second round pick, if I remember. I think it was a mid first round pick, if I remember right. But like he's trying to prove himself. Saddiq Bey's trying to prove himself. Cade obviously wants to prove he's the number one pick. Killian, who was injured last year, wants to prove that he was worthy of the top 10 pick. And Jeremy Grant, who turned down money to stay with the Nuggets to have his own team because he wanted a larger offensive role. He wants to prove something. So that there's nothing that they do right now, obviously, that is great on a basketball court. But I think it is a strength that they have young guys that want to prove that they belong. So I definitely think that's a strength for sure. Areas of improvement. They were one of the worst rebounding teams in the league last year. They were at the bottom of the league in 3-point shooting. So there was probably a low problem with creation off the ball or on the ball. So we'll see if Killian, with Cade, that combo can create on the ball. Is there another area of improvement, or do you think that's about covers it? Or
yeah, I think the biggest thing with them is they're not going to be deep. And so during the regular season, they have a lot of good young players, right? They do have Cade and then Killian Hayes from years past. They're just not deep, right? So you have, in big men, it's really Olynyk and Grant. If you want to throw in a Trey Lyles there, like someone who has never really lived up to potential, Luka Garza. So they're just not deep overall. They do have potential, like we've said, because of the names. And Josh Jackson is still there. He's kind of having a bounce back after
former top 5 pick.
Right.
Yep.
He left the Grizzlies and signed a good contract there in Detroit. So they have a lot of good pieces. I just don't know if they're built as a good team. They're just built as a lot of good talent. So I think that's really, what their struggle is going to be. But there's hope. And no matter what happens in the season, as long as there's not big injuries, I feel like Detroit, no matter what happens, there's going to be hope going forward. So I don't think there's any wrong that could happen here.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me nervous about them is the whole Killian starting at point thing. If they're going to stick with that. Dwayne Casey is an old school coach. They're interviewing people about making their beds, their draft picks, So am I worried about them being stuck with Killian and Cade playing at the same time? Like, look, we spent this top 10 pick last year on Killian. We have to play him. We don't think he can play off ball now. Killian, when he played in spots, when he wasn't injured, he was averaging like 6 assists a game. So there was some creation there, but it seems like a potential misuse of what Cade Cunningham's skill set is. So there is kind of risk for Cade to kind of have a middle of the road year as a number one pick playing off ball if they don't move him to the number one. Yeah. And I think people, how NBA fans are, how we are in general, is the immediate overreaction to that one season of trying to figure out if this duo works. Oh, he's a bust. Yeah. So I just want to say straight off, Pistons fans know this, but for everybody else, if he has an underwhelming season as a number one pick, trying to fit an NBA, trying to fit with a previous top 10 pick, he's not a bust right away. Let's give him a chance. Okay. Yeah. Let's give him a chance to figure it out. But is there a potential surprise player for this Pistons team that you like, that maybe just like a deep bench guy or someone who has underperformed in the past that might have a strong season this year?
Well, you said and so I disagree with that. I love this guy. His name is Frank Jackson, and I don't know if you know where he went to school at, but he's a Dookie, baby.
I've heard the name. Yes.
Frank Jackson is very underrated. He's finally finding his form. He was sent right straight to New Orleans, and where dreams come to die. There in the New Orleans, the Bayou. And I think that
That's fired.
Yeah, he is very much heading the right direction. And I think that people like Frank Jackson, Josh Jackson, the Jackson boys, I do think that they are going to be the unsung talent of this. And I think that they're not old into their career, but they're not rookies anymore. And so third and fourth years in, I do think that the Jackson boys will be very good for this team, and I think they're going to be the two more underrated players that are going to do really well there in Detroit.
Yeah, it is kind of like that weird time frame for players that maybe had an injury plagued beginning of their career. Now it's, do you belong or not? So Frank Jackson, this is a big season for him, because if he's not getting any playing time at all, which who knows,
he will.
He showed some flashes with the Pelicans when he got the chance. Will Dwayne Casey give him a chance is what I'm not sure of. And if he doesn't get that chance, I don't see him sticking around the NBA much longer if he doesn't get that shot. So, but I agree with you. He is a talented player. He just needs the opportunity to play.
Well, he got that opportunity last year. He had 40 games. He played in Detroit, right? He went to New Orleans in the first 2 years. This last year, in his third year, he went and to Detroit, right? And he had 40 games. He started 6 games. And down the stretch, when they were sitting some of their players, he was one of the guys, him and even Saddiq Bey, who kind of stepped up and showed out a little bit. Averaging, he averaged, 9.8 points during that time, but he also was a good assist guy. And so he did a little bit of everything. He had games where he scored 20-ish points. So I think Frank Jackson will be the backup point guard there. And I know that, some people, that doesn't matter, but I think that being a backup point guard to Killian Hayes, who could be good, struggle, I think he could be a really good backup point guard for him.
Yeah. And my player I have is the rookie Isaiah Livers, because what's needed for this team to really kind of start moving up is a little bit more consistent 3-point shooting. You don't have to be at the top of the league to be and 3-point shooting, to be a good team, but you need to be in the middle of the road. And I could see Isaiah Livers may not play right away. He might not play at all, but he could potential surprising player. He just sits in the corner and knocks down the threes that are created for him from Killian and Cade. So I could see him being an interesting surprise player, which moves us to number 29 team, the 29th team in our list, the Oklahoma City Thunder, which I was kind of surprised. I don't agree with this one either, but we had them at their record last year was 22-50. That was good for 14th in the West. Head coach Mark Daj.
You okay over there? Everything good?
You know that pronunciation?
Nope. Not going to try. His name's Mark, right?
I looked up pronunciation, even had Google say it to me, and I'm still going to butcher it. So I'm not even going to try.
Well, the fact that you're saying pronunciation, it's pronunciation, dude.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Hey, sorry. I'm from the South. Give me a break. Starters, projected stars this year. See, now I'm just messed up now. Now I'm in my head. SGA.
There you
Shai
go.
Gilgeous-Alexander. Luguentz Dort, Darius Baisley. I'm assuming they start
Pokusevski.
And they also got Derek Favors, which I would assume they didn't get Derek Favors and then not play him.
Right.
Unless they plan to ship him in the next, week or two. But that would be my starting 5. I mean, is there any argument from you at all on that one? Do you think Poku should be starting?
I don't know. I think that
does it matter?
Yeah, I don't think that matters at this point.
Okay.
I don't know if I have Derek Favors on the playing. In all honesty, I think I figured out a way to get rid of him just in general, like him and Mike Muscala. Mike Muscala is 8 years in, and then Derek Favors is 11 years in. The rest, the most like senior person on here is 3 years in the league, and that's Shai. Like, give him the reins. I know it's always good to have a vet, but if you have to play them, then that really defeats the purpose. You need a good locker room guy. You need your Udonis Haslem, somebody who can be on the roster if you don't trust Shai's leadership, if that makes sense. So I believe that Derek Favors has a lot of, legs, life, left in him. So I think he's good for, the NBA. I just don't know if he should be good on this team.
Yeah, that's what I'm not sure of, because Shea last year, 24 points, 6 assists, 42% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. And then they shut him down because they were doing better than projected, right. Than they expected, which is why I disagree with this. I think I had them in the higher 20s. But I believe one member had them one of the worst, which of course threw off our rankings. He's not here, so you can guess which one it is. So I actually think the Thunder will be okay. Like just seeing SGA, Dort, Favors is whatever. At least he's going to be solid. With the interesting they got Josh Giddey in the draft as a backup. Theo Maladon, who played well in Summer League. Darius Baisley is a guy last year, 14 points, 7 rebounds. The problem is his 3-point shooting. I mean, he was 29% threes on 5 attempts a game. So if that stuff increases, I think the Thunder could be interesting. But does that fit into the front office's plan is kind of what I'm wondering. Because strengths last year, they were a great defensive rebounding team. They played a lot without fouling, but they were giving up tons of baskets, like giving up tons of easy points, right? Like wide open layups, dunks, and they were just getting eviscerated on the inside. So stats can be kind of misleading on that. And that's just because they shut everyone down. They shut all the good players down, and we're letting the young guys that are unproven, like Poku, get the minutes, which is, if that's the direction that they wanted to go, that's exactly what they should have done. Do you agree with that? Because they just paid SGA. They want him there for the long haul, but do you think it's a good idea to just kind of year after year, hey, great first 40 games, SGA, we're going to sit you the rest of them? I mean, what's kind of the plan forward for this team? Like, how many years can you do this?
Right.
Until you piss off your premier star in SGA. And he's a star waiting to break through to the national audience.
Yeah.
And he just gets shut down.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, I feel like he's already like broken out, right? He is the star. He is somebody who everyone says, if you're looking to build around a player, he's on your list, right? Behind, Zion, Ja, LaMelo, and now Cade, and those probably aren't the 5 that everybody would agree on, but those I would be okay with either one of those guys. Shea is a very good player. Is he a good player, or a great stats, bad team? It could be a little bit, right? Because if he's your number one option, how good and how high is your ceiling? I think that's really what you have to look at. But also, my question to this Thunder team is, what are we doing here? Like, and there's always that phrase from your longtime girlfriend. It's bleep or get off the pot, right? Like, it's like, come on, like, make your decision. Like, you have a million draft picks, right? You have all these draft picks that are happening. What are we doing? And so that's my question with this team. If you look at this, just going back to Derek Favors, what are we doing? Why do we have a 11-year vet on this team if he's going to play when you have all this talent? You have Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who should be getting those minutes. Is he ready? Probably not. But then you have to look at like Shea Gilgeous, like, what are you going to do with him? Like, is he eventually going to need his big contract before the rest of the team is ready? So I think they need to figure out the decision and the direction this team's going, because right now I feel like they have a lot of good talent. Shea could be potential superstar, but is the team that you're putting around him with all these next draft picks, are they going to be good enough to actually make a difference? And so I have a lot of questions for this team, and I actually ranked them overall 28th. And so I'm not high on them, but I do believe that they will be the worst team in the West again.
Wow. I see. I think SGA is awesome. I just like you. I just want to know what the path is.
Yeah.
And Sam Presti has always been a kind of secretive guy. He's a guy who's not afraid to pull the trigger on some sort of trade for his top guys. And he's accumulated as many draft picks as you want. And I know it's sick. I know it's sexy to say you have a ton of draft picks, and there's Thunder people in my lives are like, look, we can package all this stuff in this draft and move up to 3 and get Evan Mobley. And it's like, it's just not happening. The history of the It does not happen. You go back and look at draft history, those moves just never, ever happen. Hardly ever. Right. And so they have all this stuff where they're going to overwhelm somebody for something. And it's possible, but it's just not historically, there's a foundation for it. So I just love to know the plan. I just want SGA to keep playing because, obviously Chris Paul, when he was there that 1 year, 2 years ago, would be considered the number one guy, but SGA was right behind, and they made the playoffs and pushed the Rockets to 7 games. But then you could also make the argument that SGA was bad in those playoffs, but I think that was his first trip. So areas improvement for this team. I just pick whatever you want. Yeah. Obviously they'd love to get better at shooting, creation, health, but I would just love to see their guys play a full season. And who cares about what the record is? You don't want to be that team that's just throwing away seasons for young guys, even though they're getting paid and they shouldn't care. I just don't think competitive NBA players want to do that consistently. So I'd love to see SGA play a full season. So let's pick a path here, Thunder.
Right.
But surprise player, I kind of feel like we're going to have the same guy. Just guessing. Who would be your surprise player for this team?
I love Trey Mann. So let's just go ahead with him. He's out of Florida as a rookie. I had him higher on my draft board than other people. I think he could be really good. I'm just curious, is he behind Josh Giddey? Is he, obviously he's behind Shea. So I'm just curious how much playing time he gets. I think he's a very good knockdown point guard shooter. So let's have some fun with it and give Trey some love.
I like Trey, man. I went with Jeremiah Robinson Earl from what you mentioned earlier. I think he's going to be an interesting kind of a Kyle Anderson kind of type.
Ooh, I like that.
Slow-mo type player, except he doesn't have the super long arms or anything, but he's just a smart basketball player. So he's a potential surprise for the Thunder, which gets us to number 28 on our list. This is who I think is the worst team for this upcoming season, but they made it to 28. So We'll give them that. And that's the Orlando Magic. Last year, they went 21-51. They were 14th in the East. New head coach, Jamal Mosley. Roster. I know that a lot of teams had a ton of roster turnover last year, but seeing that the Magic had 28 players log minutes for them seems like a lot. And then looking around for others, most people had 18 to 24 anyways. So maybe it's not that much, but that number just stuck out to me. Projected starters. I had the hardest time projecting the starters for this team because it's a lot of players with all the same kind of positions and roles with the same kind of potential. So see if you agree with me on this. Starters, I have a battle being between Markelle Fultz and Jalen Suggs. And obviously I'm the guy who would start Jalen Suggs. I would say Terrence Ross starts. Do you think Cole Anthony should start?
No, I think Cole Anthony is the backup, but the issue is what are we doing here? Because as you talked about Suggs and whatever his name is, you just mentioned, those two,
Markelle Fultz,
Fultz. Sorry, I'm looking down the roster, I can't find him. I believe that those two should be starting. Honestly, if both aren't starting, then one of them's the backup, right? So then do you play Cole Anthony alongside one of them? Cole Anthony needs to be on the floor.
That's a very small lineup.
Yeah.
That's a very small lineup. Yeah.
You have to have Cole Anthony on the floor. He's probably a top 5 player on this team, in all honesty.
Wow. Interesting, because there's such a logjam to me because I have Jonathan Isaac is coming back from injury. The reports are he's good to go for the start of the season. The other spot is Gary Harris and RJ Hampton are on this team. Are they fighting for a starting spot? Wendell Carter, they signed Robin Lopez for whatever God knows reason.
Yeah.
So are they going to have a battle there? So my initial reaction is starters should be Suggs, Ross, Gary Harris, Jonathan Isaac, and Wendell Carter. But if you told me that Markelle Fultz, RJ Hampton are going to start with, Terrence Ross and Jonathan Isaac, nothing would surprise me with this team, which gets me, I'm going to skip the strengths and go straight to an area improvement, because what are you doing with this roster? So like the only thing, it's not an area of improvement per se, but this is going to be a hard thing, I think, for Jamal Mosley, new coach, to kind of navigate. Is who he's going to play, because all of these guys are going to want the playing time and think they deserve it. So that could be, especially for a young team, could be a bad locker room distraction and cause a lot of problems. So I think the Magic are kind of positioned like they're watching the season to see what happens. But if it gets to mid-season, there's already some turmoil. They're going to have to move pieces to kind of consolidate this roster to where it makes sense, where there's a clear-cut guy. Or maybe that's their strategy, to create competition across the board and you win the spot, right? So that may be what they're doing, but getting to the strengths, last year they were fourth in strength of schedule. They had the fourth hardest strength of schedule last year. So I haven't seen the reports. I may have just missed this for what the rankings on strength of schedule is this year, but you would assume it would be easier. The problem is, I just think this lineup and roster is going to be so in flux that's not going to really matter. So it's sad where I have to find a strength is your strength of schedule from last year being hard. So you should get an easier strength of schedule this year.
Right.
But is there one that maybe I didn't mention that you think would be a strength or another area of improvement?
Yeah, so I think their guard play is going to be their strength. And I'll talk about my player to watch later, but I do believe that they have a lot of good guard play, and I think Suggs is going to be the guy who completely shines, and I think he'll outshine Fultz a little bit, even though Fultz was good. I believe that Suggs will be a better Fultz, and I think that this team has potential going forward to make some big moves with someone who is playing good, get a lot of people minutes, don't worry about defense. Try to score 150 points a night and call it a day. And that's what would be, if I was the coach, I would not worry about defense. I would go with a small lineup and have your bigs as, Isaac and Wendell Carter Jr. And I would just try to outscore people.
The problem with going small is you have to be able to actually shoot.
Correct. Exactly.
And Jalen Suggs not going to give you that. Fultz is not going to give you that. Cole Anthony is streaky. I mean, the most reliable three-point shooter's team is Terrence Ross. And if I had to guess, just projecting, Terrence Ross is going to be one of those guys mid-season that playoff teams are trying to pick up
100%
before trade deadline to shore up their bench. Yep. So he may not even be on this team by February. And this is kind of like a put up or shut up year for Wendell Carter. It seems. It feels like everybody's been talking about, wait for Wendell Carter. And it's year, 4? It's 3 or 4 at least for him. So
this will be his 4th season.
So it's time to put up or shut up for this guy. But is there a surprise player for this Magic team that you're looking for? Is it Wendell Carter? Do you have a deep bench guy?
Well, thanks for mentioning him. It is Wendell Carter. And where did he go to school? He went to Duke. We know how this goes.
I'm sensing a theme. Okay.
So
the University of I like to sue people, or my daddy will sue people. Yeah.
Hey, watch your mouth. No, I think Wendell Carter. I think this will be the chance that he finally, he just kind of takes the leap. For the simple fact that there won't be a lot of competition bigs wise. And I think that it'll be his chance to, they'll run the offense, not through him, but he'll be the guy who's in the high post that they run picks off of, in per se. So I think that this will be a chance where he can hit that short, jumper as well as rebound. And I think he will be a very good player and a bright spot for this Magic team, who I also had as the worst team in the league.
Yeah, my player is RJ Hampton. I want RJ Hampton to be good. I think he's a great kid. I have a feeling he's going to be really, really inconsistent, and so will his playing time. But a deep bench, which he was on their summer league team, and I was kind of impressed with him. He probably won't play at all, but that's Hassani Gravett. I believe he's a rookie out of South Carolina, and I may even say in his last name wrong, but he's probably not going to play even if he even makes a team. or if he's even on the team right now. But if not, someone should pick him up because I think he's kind of interesting. He'll at least help your G League team compete. But number 27 on this list, keep moving right on through. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who are getting a lot of kind of sexy pick vibe, not here at Free Basketball.
Nope.
22-50 last year, which was good for 13th in the East. All of these teams, 20, 21 wins, 22 separated. What a battle for the bottom. Still coached by JB Bickerstaff. How do you feel about JB? Why do you have any ill will towards JB? Do you think he should still have a job or what?
I think that he is he's holding the seat down until they find the direction that this team is going. They're obviously ranked in the bottom 5 of the league, probably consensus across the board for most people. So why worry about getting someone who is not going to work well with the team? JB Bickerstaff, in all accounts, he's a good dude, and he is going to coach up young players. He's a player's coach, and he's going to take care of his guys, right? So he's not going to do stupid decisions, and he's going to ruffle feathers. So that's really what you kind of want for the young guys. You want to help mold them, bring them up in the right direction, keep them all happy. And I think that he is a good coach for that. Now, in 2 to 3 years, if they finally, get over the hump of finally getting okay and being a decent team, they'll probably look to find another coach, which can kind of take them to the next level, because I don't think JB is there. But as of right now, he is not. He's the least of their worries. They have other issues on this team.
Yeah, starters for this team I have as Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Isaac Okoro. This is where it gets weird. They traded for Lauri Markkanen. They still have Kevin Love on the roster. They drafted Evan Mobley third and just gave Jared Allen $100 million. Who starts for this team? Are you going to start Mobley and Jared Allen together? That leaves Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen coming off the bench? Or are you going to start one of Kevin Love and Markkanen and one of Mobley and Jared Allen? Is that a waste of your number 3 pick if you're bringing Evan Mobley, who could be a generational forward, off the bench behind Jared Allen because you have a logjam at these 4s?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I don't know what their plan is. And that's what didn't make sense, right? But, Jared Allen says he's 6'11", Evan Mobley's 7 foot. Okay, basically the same guy in a sense.
Lauri Markkanen's listed at 7 foot.
God bless. Yeah. So all right. So Evan Mobley, in all accounts, is going to be the better player than Jared Allen. Jared Allen does not shoot. He rebounds, and he's a very good guy who can, kind of just hold that position down. Like, he won't do anything bad to make you lose. He'll play good enough defense. He'll get you good enough rebounds. He'll do all the things that nobody else wants to do. And he's good at that, right? So he is good at what he's supposed to be good at, and what he's kind of, made his rollout as to why he got the contract. But my understanding on this is, like, why not go ahead and not have a player like that? Maybe they trade him because he has a good contract, because he outplays his contract. But they have to get Evan Mobley on the court. And I think they can have Evan Mobley next to Jared Allen. I think they're okay with that.
Really?
Lauri Markkanen's fine. He'll come off the bench. I'm not too worried about him. But you do have, players like Isaac Okoro that need minutes. And then you have, obviously, your issue in your guard play, which is, Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. So, and that doesn't even mention Kevin Love, your old vet that's on the team making the most money. So,
who's not playing?
Yeah. So I think that they're okay putting Mobley next to Jared Allen for right now. I just think that if they want to reach their ceiling in 2 years, kind of head in that direction, they're going to have to probably move off of Jared Allen and have someone and make Mobley their big, which will be a stretch 5 in a sense.
I do have an issue with what you said about their guard play.
Okay.
Do you not like both? Or do you just not like Colin, or do you not like Garland?
Well, they obviously were trying to get off of Colin Sexton this offseason.
Right.
And so what I mean by their issues are locker room issues. Like, is Colin Sexton, is he going to come out, hair on fire, wanting to prove everybody wrong?
Yeah.
Maybe. I who knows? But is there going to be issues that if he isn't starting, or their locker room issues, like something coming out already, to where, the team is worse for having him on the roster because they can't get off of him and get enough back. So that's my only issue. I think they're both really good players. I just don't know if you have both. They're pretty much the same guys. And I think Darius Garland is a much better player, even though Colin Sexton sometimes outplays him. So I think they're confused just like all of us.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in what they do with Colin Sexton, because I think deep down Colin Sexton is a good player, and I think he's a great kid. Just from listening to interviews, very smart guy, wants to prove people wrong, wants to play hard. Like he has that kind of Russell Westbrook mentality. The problem is he's not Russell Westbrook, right? He's smaller and he's explosive, but he's not Westbrook, out of this world athleticism. And Darius Garland I like Darius Garland a lot. I was a big fan of him, 2 years in the draft. Last year, he's 17.6 assists, almost 40% from 3 on 4 attempts. So I would love to see Darius Garland shoot the ball more. The problem is Colin Sexton wants to shoot the ball because he's trying to prove something. So I do think that is kind of the game plan. Like, what's the game plan for this team moving forward? Because I don't really have a super strength for this team, because I think it just needs to be consistency and trying to prove that they can do something actually consistent. Because if Darius Garland, who in his first 2 years has missed like 18 games in 23 or something like that, 18 games even in a shortened season. So like, does he have the potential to be one of the next great kind of old school point guards? Yeah. Maybe it's not all about scoring, but it's about facilitating and setting everyone else up. He has that type of potential. The problem is, can he stay on the floor?
Yeah.
And does he mix well on the floor with Colin Sexton? So I think the Cavs do, like GM Kobe Altman does have a decision. I think they're at a point where they have to choose. And I have no idea what kind of return you can get for either. But I do think it's kind of time to choose, because they were the worst offense in the league last year, and they just need to be consistent on offense. They were slow. This is why I asked the question about JB Bickerstaff. Like, Bickerstaff is an old school guy, and he likes defense more than everything. And they were like league average in defense, but they were one of the worst teams in pace. I think they averaged 103 points per game last year, which is in this modern NBA like scoring 80. Yeah. So they just need the consistency, need the guys on their floor, and they have to figure out this rotation. I will not be happy seeing Evan Mobley come off the bench. And I'm sure Lauri Markkanen will not be happy, even though, Lauri Markkanen is whatever. But this is a team that I want them to figure out a plan, and at least let's get some steps moving forward. So I don't know, maybe that's winning 22 games to 27. That would be a market improvement for this team. But this is the under 30 club, so we're not optimistic about their future. But if you were to be optimistic about one player from their team, who would it be? Who would be a surprise for you?
Is it Taco Fall?
Is Taco Fall on their team?
Yeah, they signed him.
Oh, Lord.
He's probably just an invite to the I almost said spring train, their training camp.
Watching the Cowboys game while we're doing this?
Yeah. No, they are not playing right now. I don't know. I can go so many different directions. There's nobody I'm really looking at in particular, but somebody who I'm looking for that I want him to show out finally is Dylan Windler. And I think that he can be a good scorer, a good shooter. And I just don't think he really showed that his first year, which he didn't get a lot of minutes. So I don't know because of the people they added if he still does, but I do like Dylan Windler's game still. Yeah,
that's the thing, right? Is their problems aren't because they're void of talent. They have talent. It's now they're starting to get a little older. I mean, Darius Garland's 21 still, I think. Yeah. Learning point guard at the NBA level and did pretty good at it last year. So every projection would say he just keeps moving forward. It's time to get some consistency about him. And now we have to rely on JB Bickerstaff to figure out this rotation with another number, incorporating number 3 pick with a guy you just paid $100 million. So they have the talent. There shouldn't be an excuse. But will it be able to put together? That's the thing that I'm excited to see with this team, because to me, this could be an interesting team. Maybe not this year, but in a year or two. Gets us to number 26 on our list. Another interesting team, just from a social media standpoint, really. And that would be number 26, the Houston Rockets, who last year, 17-55, 15th in the West, head coached by the poor, unfortunate Stephen Silas, the year from hell in his first gig. Projected starters, good luck trying to project this one. John Wall, as of this recording, is still on the team. That may not be true by Tuesday. Jalen Green will be there, however. And so I got Jalen Green starting. I have John Wall starting at point right now. That could change, obviously, with that trade. Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Eric Gordon's still on the team, but he wants to be traded. So he may be gone soon, but I don't know how they'll do it with his contract and his age. Christian Wood, obviously. And I have penciled in here Daniel Tice starting for them. Okay. Although they might go with a more, which I guess is a dumb thinking, because I have also as Garuba potentially starting for the defense, but Daniel Tice is all about defense. So my tentative starters, if no one gets traded at all, I have John Wall, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood, and Daniel Tice. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I was going to say, I do like Daniel Tice at the center position here. I think he can do enough of the dirty work so Christian Wood doesn't have to, because I really don't think you want Christian Wood down on the block so much, getting banged up by, centers in the league, even though, there's not many left, but yeah, I do like that. I like your projections.
Yeah, Christian Wood last year, 21 points, almost 10 rebounds a game. The big thing last year was health, right? Yeah. And we just want him to stay on the court, because if he's on the court with rookie Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., that's at least the team I'm going to watch. Mm-hmm. They still may not win very many games, and we project here by our ranking that they won't win very many games. But it's at least visually probably going to be entertaining, maybe. Maybe
league pass team for sure.
Win-loss column, not so much, but visually, you'll want to see it. Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., KPJ on each side of the court, just firing up shots after shot after shot, and then Christian Wood, a little sprinkle there. But strength I have is their pace. They're going to get up and down the court. They were one of the fastest paced teams last year, and they have a potential for a two-headed scoring monster with Jalen Green and KPJ. Do you have a strength for the Rockets at all?
Yeah, I really do. I think their strength is going to be their depth, and I think that
think they have depth.
I really do, and it's not that they're like amazing, right? But you want to talk about people that you haven't even mentioned that are going to come off the bench, and that's Garuba and Sungoon, right? They're both potentially going to play coming off the bench. I think that Garuba is probably more ready than Sungoon just right now. But that doesn't mean that Sungoon, he's not going overseas. They got him for a first-round draft pick. He's going to be on this team. I think he'll be the backup big. And then Jayshawn Tate, I like him. Josh Christopher, I like him. As you talked about, Kevin Porter Jr. There's a lot of people that are going to be on this team that are people you're going to want to watch. And they do have some pros, some vets that are still there. And right now, as of this moment, you do have, Avery Bradley that's on this team. John Wall's still there. So what are you going to get back for, giving up John Wall? Is it bad contracts? That's fine. But is it somebody else young that they might get back in that deal? So I'm excited about watching this team. They're definitely a league pass team. And I think that you're going to be excited to see them. And I do think that they're going to be able to just keep throwing people out. Like, oh my God, I forgot he was on this team. He's good too. That's what I'm going to, every time I watch.
Yeah, this is kind of like social media's team, right? Everybody on this roster is a dog, that can play, or a hooper, as they said over the summer here, a hooper. Areas of improvement, obviously, they're going to be horrible on defense. I that's the thing they're going to have to improve. Christian Wood, maybe he'll help if he's healthy. They shot a ton of threes, one of the highest shooting 3-point teams. The problem is they didn't make them at a high clip. So obviously, if you're going to shoot them, if you're going to take them, let's make them, right? That old school kind of coach mentality, take and make. So that's what they got to do. If they're going to continue to take a high volume of threes, we're going to have to actually make some of these. And I think that's why we project here to be low, is because they're probably still not going to make a lot of these.
Right.
But a surprise player, I'll go first. I have Kenyon Martin Jr., who was kind of a fun bench player for them last year, got tons of minutes because Christian Wood was out. Kind of proved something, though, and I think he's in the 10-man rotation at least, behind Christian Wood or Daniel Tice at least. And I think he's going to be a fun player. I think he had a good summer league. If he can stay healthy, I think he'll still be kind of a pop off the bench.
Yep. I'll take Josh Christopher. I mentioned him earlier. Ooh. He's a guy who has athleticism. His shot isn't just quite there yet. But I do think that an up and down, offense, just as they're planning on, getting up and down the floor, I think that he could, really just show, glimpses of being really good. He's not going to, wow you every night. He's going to make a bunch of dumb bonehead things. He's young, right? So, but 6'5", 215, I like that player. And so give me Josh Christopher. I think he'll be a guy who comes off the bench and spot minutes and plays, and it's going to just make you stop changing the channel for a little bit.
I like that. This is an interesting team. This actually ends. I told you we're going to have to split things. The last two teams in this under 30 club is actually a pre-recorded thing with Cody. So this Daniel is done for now. So he will be back for another preview very soon, probably next week, right? Probably splitting duties with Cody and Daniel again. So Daniel's done for now. We'll take a little break, and then there'll be the two teams that me and Cody recorded together to finish out this under 30 club. Now I'm joined by the OG, the guy that we got to take off work so he could do these. Mr. Cody Halsey, how are you, sir? It's been so long.
It has been a minute, man. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am great. I feel like every episode, you've been gone for so long, it feels like that every episode that we've had in the past 6 months, we have teased that you were coming back. And that teaser just kept getting pushed off further away. But here you are, actually in the flesh.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to make good on your promises. You got to show up.
So promise fulfilled. You're here, and now you don't have to come back again till 2024.
Exactly. So I'm like the Olympics for the free basketball podcast. It's a big deal when I'm around. There's a lot of money spent. A lot of buildings are erected in my honor, and then they're not used for the 4 years after that.
And the top 99.99 percentile of athletic bodies.
Yep.
On this podcast. So premier athletes right here. 25th team on our rankings would be the Sacramento Kings, which is one of those things I said before. Like, I was higher on the Kings. You had them way low, which kind of adjusted their overall ranking with Daniel's ranking. So we'll get into your exact thoughts on why, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But last year, the record, they're 31-41, which was good for 12th in the West. Coach is still Luke Walton. My question right off the bat, is Luke Walton the coach of the Kings at the end of the season?
Nah.
You're just out on Luke Walton. Does he really have a chance? Or?
No, I'm not out on Luke Walton. I just don't think he'll be I think this team is not going to perform well, and I think that will be cause to change things up.
So you think he'll get the axe because it won't be of any fault of his own. The team will not perform.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with like roster construction than anything.
Interesting. So let's get into that roster. So last year, like with the shortened season, 72 games, and with everybody with the COVID protocols, everyone, like when I'm looking at this, I always think about the Grizzlies playing 24 players, that one year when everybody was injured. Yep. And the Kings had that kind of year. Like they had like 20 something guys that played for them. Like they had 17 guys on their roster, averaged 12 plus minutes per game for them last year, whether they're traded away or came in for people who were injured at the top. And then, so I was like, man, that's weird. No wonder they had such a rough year. I mean, 17 guys who were playing 10 plus, 12 plus minutes for you. Then I look, and most NBA teams last year had this kind of problem. It was rare if you didn't have this problem. So it wasn't out of the norm. So health was a big concern for the Kings last year. Now, of course, they added to their roster. Kind of the bigger names was they drafted Davey Mitchell, which everyone was surprised by, even Davion himself. And they got Neemias Queta in the second round, who is an interesting center player. But what about the construction of this roster that are you just not really into?
It's a lot of guards, man.
It's just not enough playing time to go around for all the guards.
Yeah, I mean, like there's just so many of them. Like, also, I don't believe in this backcourt really, or the front court.
Okay.
Like Tristan Thompson, washed. Sorry. Richaun Holmes, pretty good. Okay, so like he's your best guy. Like, where does that leave you in the NBA? That leaves you ranked 25th in the NBA. That's where
So projected stars, let's get into this. Let's talk to this a little bit. Now, these are just
Mo Harkless.
These are just kind of our assumptions on who, or maybe who we want to see start, or maybe will start. But my guess, right, which I think is a pretty solid guess, I would think obviously starting is De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, Richaun Holmes, and I skipped a name because this is where I'm having a problem with. I put in my lineup for starters at the 4 as Marvin Bagley. Would you agree with that? Or do you think they're going to go more guard heavy, small ball, maybe starting Tyrese Halliburton or the rookie and Davion Mitchell? Or do you think that they're going to start with kind of the traditional 2 bigs, quote unquote, power forwards, stretch 5-4s?
I mean, I would assume that they would play Marvin Bagley. I don't know if that's the best move to make, but that's probably what they'll do.
Okay. So Bagley is heading into, I believe, what is third year, 4th year, something like that. And this guy's played 118 games total. I mean, basically the year before last, he played 6 games, had an injury. He's really only played almost a full season his rookie year.
Really big in the rap game, though.
Brilliant. Would you say that the way his career has kind of become disappointing coincided with his rap battle with Dame?
I mean, I don't know that it had to do with his specific rap battle with Dame, but I would say that his NBA career is doing similarly to his rap career, and that is
not taking off
and kind of remaining stagnant.
But it's funny to say about not taking off, because the 3 years he's been in, when he has played, he's been right at every year, 25 minutes per game, 14 points per game.
Well, he has been taking off an awful lot.
He has been taking off an awful lot, but when he's in there, he's good for 14 points. Is that kind of the production that you thought the Kings were going to get out of the second pick?
You would want to get more than 25 minutes and 14 points, you would think. So he's 1 pick removed from DeAndre Ayton. So let's say that, you want like a slight drop off from DeAndre Ayton's production, Well, DeAndre Ayton played
just in the finals. He's one of the centerpieces
playing in the finals. Yeah, he was like 14 and 10. So I guess 14 points isn't bad.
But is he playing like DeAndre Ayton for a finals team? This team finished
12th
last
absolutely not.
Year.
They've been 12th in the West 3 out of the last 4 years. Their highest finish has been 9th.
Well, does it feel like this is kind of a prove it, put up or shut up kind of year for Marvin Bagley for you?
It feels like it's kind of a put up or shut up year for the Sacramento Kings for me. For like 10,
okay.
For like, no, for real, for like the last like 3 or 4 years, everyone's like, oh, De'Aaron Fox, like they got Buddy Hield, watch out. They got De'Aaron Fox, watch out. Like the Kings, Harrison Barnes, great locker room guy. Cool. We'll do better than 12th in the West. Like maybe, sniff the playoffs.
I think this is why we're at this tier, because they think they're going to believe that. I think they believe that they're going to challenge
They might
for a playoff spot, which is potentially possible. I mean, they did have stretches when they, were healthy where they would rattle off, 7-2 run. But then it was always followed by a game losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the problem, right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, let's get into some strengths and areas of improvement here. So strengths, for me, a strength is obviously guard play. Like
youth.
You're talking about De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes. I mean, Harrison Barnes not young, neither is Buddy Hield. And then you're talking about two young players, a rookie and Davey Mitchell, who his nickname is Off Night, which is a great nickname. And then Tyrese Halliburton, who was every nerd's, favorite player last year, coming off the bench. So you're talking about 5 good rotation playing wings that should not have a steep drop off. Now, Davey Mitchell's going to be a rookie. It's going to take him a little bit of time, right? But his defense is going to be something that you can count on, which is going to make him playable. So to me, the strength for the Kings is their guard play. De'Aaron Fox is a dynamic driver and kick, but the problem is his 3-point shot has just not come around. But the Kings were extremely efficient around the basket last year. Now, areas of improvement, what would jump out of the page to you for areas of improvement for the Kings?
I think that you would be looking for, just like you want better players, I think is the improvement that you want for the Kings.
Yeah, if you're going to actually make the playoffs, you need better players.
Yeah, you got to have better players. I look at this roster and I'm looking down it and I go like the best guy on this team is like a third guy on a championship team.
Wow.
Right? Go down the list. Go down the list. Like right now, if any of these guys were on a championship team, who is a number one guy on a championship team on this team?
None of them. But
okay.
I'm kind of surprised
who's
that
the number two?
I'm surprised you even say there's a third.
Who are you?
Because I would think they'd be a 4 or 5.
No, I mean, I think Buddy Hield. If Buddy Hield's your third option on your team, you're in pretty good shape. As far as scoring and stuff goes, if he's your third scorer, hey, be the third guy. I mean, we've seen teams that had J.R. Smith seem like the third guy.
That's a fair point. He probably fit very well. I mean, he shoots 10 threes a game last year, and he shot almost 40% from there. He is specifically a 3-point shooter, which is what NBA, it's just what they want from wings now. From
the 16 Cavs, who's more important, Kevin Love's role or J.R. Smith's role?
All right. I said at the beginning about us going on the rabbit trail. Here is one. Off the rails easy. Gone for 6 months and we fall right back into our same old.
But I'm saying right now, I think Buddy Hield's the only third guy.
Okay. For me, obviously, that sticks out. Buddy Hield's going to give you 10, 3-point attempts, hit 4 of them a game. The problem is the glaring issues for me for improvement for this team is obviously their defense. They're one of the worst defenses in the league last year. Efficiency wise, defensive rating, whatever you want to look at, they were at the bottom. Now you can factor that in with all the movement that they had, no continuity all year with the injuries. But everybody had that kind of problem last year, and they still ranked dead last, or maybe not dead last, but second or third from last. And rebounding is their huge issue. I think that's the biggest problem that they have is rebounding. I think they did rank last in statistical category for rebounding. So those would be the things that if they're really going to make that jump, I think that's why they drafted Davey Mitchell. I think that's why they're going to start Marvin Bagley and Rashawn Holmes and hope they're healthy. Is for the rebounding aspect. Davion's for the defense. So they did try to make little piece moves. But talking about, we're ending each of these before we move on to another team with a surprising player that could be a potentially surprising player for the Kings. So typically it's a guy that he can be a rotation guy, which is the guy that I have, which isn't going to be a surprise, quote unquote. But just a guy who maybe is a bench guy, or maybe he doesn't even play for them, or hasn't even logged a minute for them yet. Or
so you're telling me that the surprise of this team that I can pick doesn't even have to be a guy that plays for them.
He hasn't played yet for them. You can say
you're
rookie. So who would be your surprise player that's going to surprise us?
Robert De Niro. You made this too wide. You gave me too much.
Analyze that.
Yeah. I think that is Jack Nicholson. Maybe.
Is it? I
don't know. I can't remember.
It was De Niro with.
It probably is De Niro. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it is.
I think it's De Niro. Yeah.
I think anger management is Jack Nicholson.
Who would be your surprise player? We gotta move on.
My surprise player for this team is probably Marvin Bagley. I think like we were saying earlier, it is kind of make or break year for him. So I think that, it puts everybody always says, hard work, he reclassified so he could go to Duke, Coach K.
Yeah.
Duke. He's
pedigree.
Pedigree. This guy's got more pedigree than dog food. So he is gonna be busting it out there this year. And I think that I think Marvin Bagley's a guy to watch out for on this team. I don't think that's gonna make them good, but I think he's who you watch out for.
Yeah, the guy that I'm going to watch out for is who I mentioned earlier, the Nerds dream last year, and that's Tyrese Halliburton. He's just the glue guy that makes everything work. So I think he's going to come off the bench. Be interested to see if they move on from Hield just to try to get Halliburton in a starting lineup, or move on from somebody so he can get more playing time. But I think he's going to be a force that gives them the option of moving somebody for pieces. So those would be my surprise players. Let's move on. Number 24. The San Antonio Spurs last year went 33-39, which was good for 10th in the West. They lost in the play-in game by 4 to the Memphis Grizzlies in that very rousing 104-100 win, or 96-100, whatever it was. And of course, they're coached by Greg Popovich, good old faithful Greg Pop. Rosters, DeMar DeRozan is gone, no longer there, but not to fear, Spurs fan. You added Doug McDermott. So you're good. You're getting the equivalent production. And they also signed Zach Collins, which is kind of like a risky, risk reward kind of play, which I liked. I don't know how you felt about that, but he's always injured. More famously, kind of what the Spurs did this offseason is they drafted Josh Primo 12th, which was equivalent to the Suns taking Jalen Smith the year or two prior, 10th. So they
talking about Cam Johnson?
No. Josh Primo and Jalen Smith. Cam Johnson worked out for the Suns. They tried to do it back-to-back years.
I know, but I think
Jalen Smith.
Oh, okay. You're talking about. Okay, never mind.
They came from Maryland. Yeah.
The way you said, yeah. I remember. Sorry. I was at your house when Cam Johnson was taken, so I remember your reaction to that. So that's what stuck out in my mind.
They tried to do it back-to-back years where they thought they were smarter than everybody and get the player they liked before everyone else, And so it feels like the Spurs did that. Like they took Josh Primo 18 spots too high. What do you feel about the Spurs? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of youth in this lineup. They did get Thaddeus Young. Yeah. So that kind of bolsters the age for them.
It really does.
What's your general, do you think the Spurs are going to just kind of do this again? Like last year, 33 wins was enough to make the play-in. And they had a shot to play the Warriors to make that 8th seed. Is this another kind of repeat kind of year? Or do you actually see a regression with DeRozan gone?
Well, I think with DeRozan gone, they're probably not going to score as much.
They weren't a proficient three-point shooting team. That is not DeMar DeRozan's game. He does not shoot threes, but he did everything else for him. Drove the basket, shot the 2-pointers, and finished them at a good percentage and created for them.
Yeah.
So he was one of their highest assist guys.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of playmaking and stuff that, that's going to need to be taken care of. But that being said, they got Doug McDermott. They got Derrick White. They got Deante Murray. They got Jakob Poeltl. Lonnie Walker.
Well, let's talk about their starters a little bit. All right. So
if Trey Jones isn't starting,
what? Okay.
I'll be upset.
Starters are going to be.
Well, this is
our estimate. Deante Murray is obviously starting point guard. Derrick White, Kelton Johnson, Thaddeus Young, and Jakob Poeltl. Thaddeus Young is the kind of question mark that I'm not sure. Not really sure who they're going to go with, though. Are they going to start Lonnie Walker and put Kelton Johnson as a stretch 4? I'm not really sure. I wouldn't assume they signed Thaddeus Young to bring him off the bench, but I know
small lineup.
I know he's I mean, he's a smaller power forward too. And
Right.
he's older. I mean, he's going to be like 33 or 34. So I don't know
33.
if, like, I just project them starting Thaddeus Young, I would assume. But I'm just not 100% sure. And you talked about that playmaking. I mean, Deante Murray can't shoot for anything still. And he's going to have to play make. Like, who's going to create for this team? Are you all in on Kelton Johnson coming off of that Team USA, you know, the experience of being with Pop in the Olympics, winning gold? Like, he had some moments, didn't play a lot, but he did have some moments at the beginning where he brought the hustle, the energy, you know, kind of turned it around for him a little bit in those like seeding games.
The Olympic team.
When everybody hated the Olympic team, like, he was kind of the bright spot. Do you think that's a carryover for him to kind of carry on the mantle of DeMar DeRozan?
Well, I mean, I definitely think like that Olympic experience is like helpful. And yeah, I mean, like, I think he'll be good.
Interesting. So you think that Kelton Johnson could have a breakout season?
Yes.
He did average 13 points, 6 rebounds last year. So it seems like 20-point scores are a dime a dozen. So would you prefer to see him in that 18 to 20 points, or is that realistic for him, you think? With
I don't know why
DeMar
that wouldn't be
being
realistic. There's points to be had. Something they got to come from somebody.
Yeah.
Is it going to come from Josh Primo?
Josh Primo is probably not touching the floor this year.
Is it going to come from Trey Jones?
What do you think about the Zach Collins signing? I mean, I've seen people being like, oh, that's head scratching. Why would they sign him to that? He's always injured. But
I kind of get why people would scratch their head about it, but I also kind of get why you would be like, well, take a flyer on it. Cause like at the number they got him at, like that's like a contract that you can trade, like to get something back for. And then it becomes like an expiring contract too at some point. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that big a deal. Yeah.
And he's had moments with the Trailblazers where it was like, oh, he's going to make Nurkic, like, they're going to be able to get rid of Nurkic. And then he's just hurt. A cascade of foot, ankle, you know, whatever. And so he's had like 3 or 4 surgeries already in 3 years or whatever it is he's been in the league. 3 or 4 years he's been in the league. So it's obviously a risk, but to me, it felt like it was worth it. Like, if you're the Spurs, obviously you're kind of weak at that position anyways. Like, and he's a potential stretch 5. And play the center, run with these guys and shoot threes, or he was starting to anyways. It's just the health factor, right? So I thought it was a worthy risk. I mean, why not? Right. But talking about some strengths here, we're going to move through these. I know we need the Kings for a warm-up. This is our first one. So now that we're starting to actually move a little bit here, what's some strengths that the only strength I really have for the Spurs, because I just don't see them as a team that's going to be great at anything, is like
coaching.
Daniel says this before, it's the high, like the medium level floor, but a very low ceiling. Like the guys don't seem to have an ability to rise to a much higher level than what they currently are, right? The only one that I kind of exempt that with is Kelton Johnson. Like, I think Kelton Johnson could be a very good player, but Deante Murray, I kind of think we know what Deante Murray is. And I hate to say that, you know, he's only like 22 or 21. His career is far from done, right? But there's just been no signs of anything. Derrick
Murray is 25.
Is he? He's been in the league that long?
He's been in the league for 4 years. He's 1996.
Really?
This is his birthday.
For some reason, I thought he was a freshman coming into the league, and he was like 22 or 23. Wow, time passes very, very quickly. Okay. But like Jakob Poeltl, he is what he is. Like Thaddeus Young is 33, 34. Like Derek White, great. Like Lonnie Walker, great. Like, so the strength that I have is the promise of youth. And that also is like an area of improvement. Like, you have the promise of youth as your strength of, look what we can build with these guys. But here's the opposite, the yin yang of that is that could be your downfall, is the promise of youth. Because if these guys don't ever, you know, become something more than a 10th seed, 9 to 10 or 11, then what do you really have? So it's a strength and a weakness for them, I believe, is just the youth factor with them. Like, who's going to be that guy? And then also a huge area improvement for the Spurs is they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league last year. And, that's part of by design, because Pop's a smart coach. He's going to cater to his best player, and that was DeMar DeRozan, and DeMar DeRozan lives within the 3-point line. So I will be interested to see if the Spurs change it up and become a higher volume 3-point shooting team. And if they do, who's going to be the guy that's going to actually shoot that? Is that why they got Doug McDermott? Because they need a guy to shoot from the perimeter.
Could be.
And this could be the boom or bust with them, is this 3-point shooting X factor. I just don't think they can live from 2-point and in anymore and expect to make the play-in this coming year. So any strength or area improvement that you see that maybe I didn't mention?
No, I mean, I think you've got it pretty well. I mean, I would say that their greatest strength is their coaching.
Do you think Pop is just tired? You think he's ready to be done?
I would be. He's been doing it since I was alive.
And with these young cats, or whatever they say nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think Team USA re-energized him, re-energized him, or do you think he's just biding his time to quit and just be the full-time coach of Team USA?
Maybe you will. I don't know.
So you think coaching is definitely their strength. What's a weakness that maybe I didn't mention that you think?
The age of their coach.
But he's towards the end more than he is towards the beginning. Okay, I like that. Yep. Now, surprising player for the Spurs. Who do you got?
Kelvin Johnson.
Kelvin Johnson, that's your guy for this year. I like it a lot. Mine is Devin Vassell, second-year player from Florida State. I think he's going to be an interesting piece off the bench that if they're going to focus more on shooting threes, I think he's going to have an interesting role for them and will be an interesting barometer off the bench shooting threes. So he's a guy that I'm looking for the Spurs. Cody will be back in a future one. So not only do you get him once in 2021, you get him twice for the team previews and possibly a third.
Well, this is news to me.
This
news
is
to me.
We'll talk to your agent, sir.
Yeah, get your people in touch with my people.
But thanks to everyone who tuned into these. Hope you're enjoying them. Please respond. We'd like to hear your opinions on how bad our opinions are. So thanks for listening in. Hopefully you're enjoying the new podcast feed for free basketball on the Lead Sports Media Podcast Network, run by our Mr. Daniel Greer. So we're excited to be doing it. Hope everybody's enjoying it, getting geared up for the start of the NBA season again. Cody, once again, truly a joy to be with an OG. I will talk to you soon, man.
A pleasure to be here.